from the south of India. Today, the person who's the center of it all is, of course, South Indian, but the debate isn't. And I'll tell you what, the debate between vegetarianism and non-vegetarianism is back. And I'm saying back because, amongst other things, the food choice is one thing which almost fashions one's identity in this country. First, a fact. India is largely non-vegetarian. Look at the map on your screens right now, and you can see the screen, and you can see that, majority of India is indeed non-vegetarian, with very little areas which are showing green, and that being the south of, yes, green, which is vegetarian, I beg your pardon. Look at the map, and also look, let's also explore some other myths. And I say that because as South Indian and Tamil, I get to hear this a lot. You guys eat dosas every day, no? No, we don't. However, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Odisha and Jharkhand are states where the proportion of non-vegetarians is more than 97%. So please, ladies and gents, we need to explore some myths. In contrast, Punjab, Haryana, Gujarat and Rajasthan have the least non-vegetarian population, which is actually below 40%. Now let's focus on the main issue, and that concerning Sudha Murthy, who's author and philanthropist and also an engineer turned teacher who set up Infosys along with her husband Narayana Murthy. On a YouTube show which was about food, Sudha Murthy spoke about her favorite foods and her inability to cook a variety of dishes. And when she was asked what does she do when she travels abroad, she said, and I'm reading this because this is verbatim, she said, I'm adventurous in my work, not in my food. I'm in fact scared. I'm a pure vegetarian. I don't even eat eggs or garlic. What I'm scared of is that the same spoon will be used for both vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. It weighs on my mind a lot. Hence, when we go out, I only search for veg restaurants, or I carry one bag which is full of eatables. I carry ready to eat stuff that you have to just heat it in water. I carry poha. That's what Sudha Murthy said. Now, focus on this line from her statement, which was actually plucked out. And this is what I'm scared of is that the same spoon will be used for both vegetarian and non-vegetarian food. That is the line which was actually plucked out of her entire statement, and the Twitter exploded with several opinions. And some of them, are obvious, of course, but I would like you to go through, look at the screen, and you will find some of those tweets, where different people are saying different things. Tehseen Poonawalla has said that, speaks about Muslim family, and actually he's been very kind to Sudha Murthy and said, after all, it's her food choice. Then you have someone else. She says, what she's doing, what is practiced by Jains, which is absolutely right, because on the airline we do have, Jain food. And someone else is saying it is attacking our culture. And someone said that, also made a comment about her son-in-law, Rishi Sunak. And several questions were raised, and in the process of the Twitter exploding. And Rishi Sunak, they put up pictures where Rishi is actually serving an entire, table which has obviously barbecue and non-vegetarian dishes. So we are asking a couple of questions, and which I will ask on this debate. Is Sudha Murthy casteist? I mean, that is one thing which has been leveled against Sudha Murthy, and I don't want to say anything because I will say it during the debate. But first, let's go to the guest just now. Because I think that the only thing I feel which may be out of bounds is that as a public figure, maybe Sudha Murthy could have avoided the scared bit. What is scary about something which is perhaps inadvertent, I think. That spoon, and maybe very innocent unless you're an renunciate, that beats me. If you're a sannyasi, fine, but then we are all ordinary people. If someone, inadvertently you actually eat from a spoon which was, I do not know, you don't even know, you don't go to the kitchen. If you're so particular, you should be carrying the spoon, but then she hasn't, and some of the people on Twitter got it wrong. Please, she does not carry cutlery. She only carries ready to eat food, and she carries, of course, some other things and also a pressure cooker. Also, unlike many vegetarians who may not have the luxury to be afraid, she and I am including myself, we are all privileged, and therefore it doesn't wash that word, scared. I think it is rather exaggerated, the entire thing. First up, my guests are joining me, the Lecturian, who is a communication expert, Dr. Sylvia Spirulina, who is public health expert and activist, and more guests, of course, will join us as we go along. A very, very warm welcome to both of you. Hi, Dilip. As someone who's a brand guru, to unmute yourself, Dilip, I think, unless we are having an audio problem.
No, I haven't muted myself.
Yeah, now I can hear you. The thing is that the Twitter exploded. You're from the South, I'm from the South, and I think it's a lot to do with culture also. Although pan-Indian thing is, first thing you are asked is, are you vegetarian or non-vegetarian? Then I have these responses, what, you don't eat meat? I mean, so it's like, I'm never going to live, I'm going to die the next moment, or whatever. It's a choice. But, my whole point is that if you're a public figure, and the way she said, I'm very scared, what if the same spoon is used for vegetarian and non-vegetarian? Dilip, do you think for someone who's a public figure, who's an author, who's admired, was this necessary at all? I mean, to say something, because in a way you're isolating a lot of people, you're raising eyebrows also.
I think Sudha Murthy's comments were probably made, as many of her comments are, with a genuine sense of affection, simplicity, and enhanced identity of who she is. The explosion on Twitter, I don't find surprising, because Twitter likes to quibble and quarrel largely. That's first. The second is that I think that, as you rightly said, the issue of privilege. And the third issue that I want to have focused on, in some senses, is that this is not about, purity. And I think that the less we make this an issue of purity, the chances of having it seen as a kind of casteist divide will get reduced. But the big question that we need to understand is, was Sudha Murthy trying to either demean or insult somebody? I don't think she meant it that way. So the first thing is that I think we should tend to forgive her a little bit. Getting our knickers into a twist about a thing like this just shows us as being thin-skinned.
Right. Yeah, we'll get back to Dilip, who started off the conversation very well. Sylvia, I want to come to you. What Dilip was speaking about, that we need to be a bit kind of kind to Sudha Murthy. Do you think that somewhere, because I'm only being the devil's advocate, was Sudha Murthy being casteist somewhere, Sylvia? Do you think that, like I said, I'm giving her, Dilip does not think so, but I'm giving her the benefit of doubt also. But then a lot of people are saying, look, you're a product of your culture, right? Like I'm a Tamil, so I'm a product of where I grew up. I mean, in my case, for sure, somewhere, that's why I understand the way maybe Mrs. Murthy is wired also. But do you think that somewhere when she spoke about, let's play that, what she said, Shampa, if we can play that, where she says, I'm scared, and I always go out, I carry food, I carry a pressure cooker. Does she come across as casteist at all? Sylvia, I'm asking you, ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes. So what Sudha Murthy is showing, and also even the other speaker, Mr. Dilip, is showing, is what we can call a kind of a innocent casteism. Basically, it's displaying all the markers of caste privilege, of identifying yourself by certain markers as being of a certain caste that you think is superior. But using all these words like simple and, I'm, giving someone the benefit of doubt, But if you look at it in a larger context, is these very markers that are used to create the whole hierarchy within society, to create a sense of superiority and inferiority, using words like scared, polluted, contaminated, dirty, unhygienic, the sattvic as a higher form of food, tamasic and rajasic as lower forms of food. I mean, these are not things that which do not have real life consequences. Would a person, say a Dalit woman, would she be able to go onto camera and say, I like beef, so I carry beef with me? She wouldn't be able to say it. So, trying to reduce what Sudha Murthy is saying to something very innocent, I think that's a problem, because she represents a larger culture that is very casteist, and the casteism has real life implications. It leads to denial of eggs to children in the schools. It leads to cattle slaughter bans across the country. It leads to people who are meat eaters being denied that and criminalized, looked down upon. You have teachers who are telling students that meat is bad for you. So, if you look at it from a scientific point of view, curd and milk and ghee and butter are all animal source foods. In terms of composition, they are as contaminated or as polluted as want to label the meats as in terms of composition. So we also need to be scientific about food, and we should stop privileging casteist behaviors, especially if it has real life implications. On Twitter, they say, what if a Muslim has his preferences and doesn't want, insists on halal food? That's completely fine. If a Brahmin or Jain person says that I want to, I have certain privileges, that's completely fine. But you cannot take it away in isolation from the larger situation, how policies are decided, how children are being treated, how people are being criminalized, how people are being denied certain foods. So you can't just, take it away from that and say, oh, she's very innocent.
Yeah, Dr. Spirulina, somewhere I'm
Dr. Sylvia Karpagama, Spirulina.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Someone has put, please change her name now. Thank you very much.
Karpagama.
And our apologies to you. May I call you Dr. Sylvia now then? Let them put up your name, Sylvia, if that is okay with you. And sorry for the boo-boo. I kind of agree with what you're saying. And I'll tell you why. Because I'm from the same cultural ambience or umbrella. I know exactly. So when I read this, I could actually hear my grandmother and my aunts and my everyone. I mean, if they have to actually decide who's a good girl, and I was not one. So, following will be asked, do you eat non-vegetarian food? Oh, you eat egg? No. Have you tasted it? Yeah. Will you taste it again? I don't know. So, smoking, drinking, everything, which is of course very bad for health, but food, particularly food, it comes from this kind of being sanctimonious. My problem is that you are privileged and I am privileged. I can, maybe order something else and eat because I don't eat meat. But the point is that what about thousands? Like I was talking to reporters, they said, what do you think, yaar? I mean, we go on the streets and we are shooting, we get anything we eat. What is this? I mean, I could be a vegetarian in my personal space, but I have to do it. So it's about privilege. Dilip, was she being sanctimonious? That's a very important question.
I think that's a great point, and Dr. Sylvia has brought it out very well.
Very well.
Sanctimony and sanctity sometimes tend to get, correlated in some senses. I think this was sanctimonious. The point I'm making is that the debates tend to get acrimonious, but some people like to be sanctimonious and they want to say it in a manner which sounds like just graciousness and simplicity, which is actually even more dangerous. The key point that Dr. Sylvia made, which is that does everybody have this privilege? And does this privilege then get translated into policy? That is where the real danger is. The danger is that we are conflating preferences and perhaps religious diktat into what is in the policy making sphere. What should children get in their midday meal? What should they be allowed to have? Of course, they should be allowed to have choices, but by giving them certain minimalist choices, are you actually choking off their supplies, their habits, or their own traditions? And do we recognize that? That is where it becomes sanctimonious.
Absolutely. And Dilip, let me tell you, and I said, you know, I'm part of that entire cultural milieu. If you say this, they will say, oh, have you seen an ane? That is an elephant, you know, it's vegetarian, it is the strongest. You are taught all this when you are a child. Have you seen such and such animal? It is so intelligent. Have you some tennis players who were vegetarians from India? I don't want to name them. Father and son duo. So, you know, you are constantly, so my whole point is sanctimonious, and also as a public figure, she is actually cancelling a lot of payment. When you say something like this, I can say it with, you know, my friends, but for someone who's who's an author, a children's author particularly, and I'm saying it, I understand how she is wired, very innocent, but you know, these things need to change. Tehseen Poonawala has also joined us, who's an entrepreneur. Namaskar, Tehseen ji. You know, you wrote on Twitter and you seem to be, you know, kind of, if I'm not wrong, supporting Sudha Murthy ji.
I don't support her.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic towards her.
You're What's your stand, Tehseen ji?
So let me just put this out there. I think Sudha Murthy, I'm not a fan of Sudha Murthy. I think she grossly exaggerates I think she grossly exaggerated her encounter on the so-called business class line. That doesn't happen. I think she terribly exaggerated her her experience at the UK airport, where people were surprised that she's the Prime Minister's mother-in-law. That doesn't happen. For protocols, for other things, and for UK, you don't require to fill a form. So I'm not a fan of her. But I'm a complete non-vegetarian. I eat every single meat. I'm extremely experimental in my eating. So I don't come from a space of either moral policing or being vegetarian or vegan. I'm not all of that. In fact, I think that the reason India has such severe malnutrition, India is not a hungry country. India is a malnourished country. And the reason our fellow citizens are malnourished is because the government keeps feeding them rice and wheat, which is carbohydrates. We need to increase our protein intake. We desperately need to increase our protein intake for our kids. So all of that I completely agree with. But what is it that this woman says in this particular show with that anchor? So I saw the clip of the show and I posted.
Yeah.
She's not imposing her food choices on anyone else. She's saying, look, I am pure vegetarian. I don't eat even whatever lasan and adrak, garlic and all of that. So I carry my own set of food. I carry my own cooker and I cook my own food. And, you know, I'm scared psychologically that my utensils will get mixed. Now, you can wonder if you're worried or not worried. But look, I know I have a lot of friends who are Muslims. They won't eat from the same fork if I'm eating pork, right? They won't share the same fork with me.
Okay.
I know a lot of Jews who eat only kosher food, and at one point, one of my best friends, she was Jew for a really, and while she was in India, an Israeli, and she would not eat from the same plate as us. So she's saying, she's just putting that out. She's not imposing her views on other people. She's not saying, look, you have to be vegetarian. That's the right way to go. If she would have said that, I would have contradicted her. In fact, I'm again saying India's problem, nutritional problem, is too much grains, too less protein. We need to increase protein. But she's saying this is the way I am, and I take my food, I take my cooker, I cook my own.
Yeah, but she's Sudha Murthy ji. Tomorrow, if you say something like
I'm not Tehseen ji.
No, yeah.
I'm Tehseen.
Tehseen, if you say, so please call me Sudha also. Don't call me Sudha ji. I just don't like it. So Sudha ji is, you know, all of you. So thank you. So the thing is that Tehseen, if you said you're a public figure, Dilip is a public figure, Dr. Karpagam, all of you, if you say, you know, you have to see who you are also, right? Like tomorrow, I'm not a public figure, but tomorrow if I'm called for a panel discussion, I'm not going to sit there and say, I will be very scared, is this spoon? Because that way I'm cancelling the people who are serving me food. The serving of food or the eating of food also culturally means something else for us and means something else for someone. My whole point is scared. That word scared is overdrive. It's OTT. It's really of over the top. नहीं तहसीन, scared की क्या बात है इसमें? क्या डर की बात है? You know, let me also tell you that if you
answer that?
जी Ji, go on.
If you just allow me to answer that, hypothetically, assume that Dilip, you, I, and a friend of ours, Imran, went for lunch, and it's a buffet, and the hotel is serving us a buffet, serving us a la, or serving us whatever meats are available.
Okay.
And he just says, look, just don't serve me pork. Or for example, he orders a club sandwich, a non-veg club sandwich, and then the steward will ask him, is it with or without pork or bacon? So one second, he says, no, just make sure you don't serve me pork, you can serve the rest of them. So I think that's fine. She's not saying you should not eat non-veg. Look, I think she's grossly over exaggerated as a celebrity.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you. I'm interjecting, but Tehseen, if that sandwich comes to me, I won't say, oh God, listen, I'll say, listen, I don't eat this, right? So may I have a vegetarian sandwich, please? I'm not going to say I was paranoid. I didn't know. There is nothing to be paranoid. It's like, OTT, because I know. Dr. Karpagam, I want to ask you what Tehseen said and what Dilip said. Is she trying to be exclusivist, which is not wrong? Like, I can say it's so, but my whole point, Dr. Karpagam, is that the way you put it and who you are. So this exclusivist thing is that you can be vegan, you can be off gluten, you can be whatever. I'm using the word exclusivist, of course, in this context. But don't you think that, the way she put it, Dr. Karpagam, it was kind of very dramatic, and it is part of your DNA. I'm sorry to say, she did not do it deliberately. She did not do it to kind of hurt others. But that is how you're wired. What do you do? But if you're a public figure, you got to really unlearn a lot of things, Dr. Karpagam.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, she's an influential person who's also writing books for children. And if you look at words like purity and scared, they have a lot of casteist associations. People who are hesitant to touch their own excreta and, who expect others to come and clean their toilets and, clean their sewers. Again, that comes from a very caste location. But then you want to create this exaggerated sense of hygiene and purity. And when you say scared, the word scared is not a simple word. It comes with a lot of connotations.
Yes.
It means it's not just that you're scared that you're going to eat a food that maybe you're not used to or you don't like it. There's an aversion to it. There's a distancing. There's a contempt for it. And when you say scared, you're scared of germs. You're scared of viruses. You're scared of evil things. So by implication, what you're saying that. And that's the way the caste system operates. You not only criminalize and dehumanize and look down on someone who eats on the food itself, but also on the people. And you can see that in the way caste manifests in terms of who gets to occupy positions of power, who's occupying media, who's who are the doctors, who the so-called white collar jobs. So these are not innocent things. If she doesn't understand what caste is, and if she doesn't understand the markers of caste or the language of caste, then clearly she's not fit to be a public figure. She's clearly not fit to be an author of children's books. Because these kind of innocent manifestation of casteism, they come across in who you talk to, in who you don't talk to, who you're scared of. Why are you scared of what people eat? Where's the word coming from? Why are you using the word pure? What's pure about vegetarian and what does it imply about the foods that are not vegetarian? At the end of the day, ghee is animal fat. So you are okay to consume animal fat in one form and the other form is impure for you. So there is no scientific basis for it. It's completely comes from caste privilege.
Absolutely.
And to not know it is again the privilege that one has.
Yeah, Dr. Tehseen, sorry. Tehseen, go on. You were raising your hand.
I just want to again make the same point. The reason Muslim fellow citizens eat halal food is because they consider it clean. So then that same accusation can come. Why do Muslims think other forms of meat is not clean? Or the reason Jews eat kosher food is they believe in some amount of purity. So there is a historical, cultural, religious context to that. So I don't think in this particular case, this woman should be denied her right to write storybooks, because in her storybooks, she's not asking children to be a vegetarian.
No, not at all. No. Yeah.
He's saying what she's saying. What she's saying is, look, I have an issue. I get scared if the utensils get mixed. I don't want to take the chance, so I take my pressure cooker along and I take my food and my raw materials along. And
Sure, Tehseen, a lot of my Jain friends, they go for Jain meals on in the airline. I have parents, you know, who eschew any kind of, that's all fine, but they will not sit there. I mean, I think nobody should say, oh, I'm scared. What if this is this? I mean, that I think is a problem. Dilip, you are someone.
But what if pork is served to a Muslim?
You know,
Won't he be scared?
I think the whole.
Sorry, Dilip. So sorry.
concept-
So sorry. I interrupted. So sorry.
The point is that it is the concept of othering,
Yes.
which I have an issue with. You know, you by saying I am fearful of it, I'm scared, or I'm, you know, you're making something else something to be scared of, and that there is an implied danger in that, and that is very often the shallow basis for creating much more powerful discriminations. So to that extent, given that Sudha Murthy is a very learned and well advised person, I think that when she was giving something which was going to be in the public domain, it would have been smart for her, and she is very smart, to have avoided using this. But what Tehseen said at the beginning is very important, that there is this affectation to want to sound very simple and very, down to earth, and therefore very timid. And in the course of that, if you say something which could potentially lead to public discourse heading in a certain direction, then she should be cautious of it, and she should be cautioned about it. That's my point.
Yeah, so look at this, Dilip. I mean, the thing is that I also want to talk to you about that, you know, it's imperative, don't you think? You said she's a very well-known person, she's well advised, she's an author, of course, you know, has a brilliant career. I mean, as a woman, I was very impressed when she said that how she actually supported her husband, and she said, listen, I supported him initially, but later I made it very clear, Murthy, I am the one responsible for your company. I like I mean, in all this also you have to read between lines. You can't demonize a person completely. I saw this. But don't you think that public figures like this also need some kind of, and I'm not going to use the word training, but don't you think they need to be extremely cautious that they don't come out or, you know, sounding like this, where half the people, maybe the crew which was shooting with them, yes, they were sitting there, you know, in a vegetarian restaurant, you know, in Bengaluru eating Mysore food, great, very good for you. But maybe the crew, what if the crew was like that? One has to be very, very careful not to hurt people's sentiments, you know. So don't you think
when you are in the public sphere,
Yeah.
when what you're saying is meant for broadcast, not narrowcast,
Yeah.
not family cast, then you need to make sure that you are not unwittingly, let us give her the benefit of doubt, unwittingly becoming part of a vicious cancel culture where those with less powerful voices are very often trampled on, othered, and smothered. That is the real danger, and we need to be conscious of that, all of us, in whatever we say. So even in what we say, we must be clear that we are not cancelling someone or imposing a value system. Everybody has the right to their view. Everybody has the right to their fears. But when you're a public figure,
Yes.
you have to understand that you have to have a filter. And Sudha Murthy cannot be accused of not knowing of the existence of that filter. That's my point.
Dr. Karpagam, what Dilip said, you know, you can say that fine, she needs to, he says, let's, you know, as a public figure, not for narrowcast, but broadcast. But the point is, Sudha Murthy can turn around and say, this is who I am. I laugh like a little girl. I'm very fond of Shah Rukh Khan. I watch his movies. Of the food, he said, I like dhokla, I like this, I like that, you know. So she's almost like someone who's very endearing, you know. So she would say, what's your problem? That's my food choice. So what are you talking about? So if you just take it and look at it from that prism, which a lot of people did, I did not. But you know, the point is that isn't she justified in thinking like that, Dr. Karpagam?
See, just to give you the example of Akshay Patra, they are part of the ISKCON group, and they give the midday meals to children, and they talk about this idea of sattvic food, and they use words like same words, simple, pure, leading to higher consciousness. And what is left unsaid, but they also do say it in their other kind of talks, is that the other foods are therefore polluted, they're therefore lead to lustful thoughts, they make the children less, the concentration is less. So this idea of simple is also associated with purity, with the being of higher consciousness, of being a person who has overcome the bodily needs and the bodily desires, and gone to a higher plane of living. And we have doctors doing the same thing. So I know people who are HIV positive, who have severe muscle wasting, they're losing protein, and the doctor is telling them eat simple food, eat vegetarian food, and that doesn't come from a scientific background. So what someone like Sudha Murthy is doing is, there's also a process of erasure, where if she writes a book and she says this person went to a vegetarian restaurant and ate curd rice, then a child, all the other children who don't eat curd rice are also being given this message. And these messaging is not overt, it's also covert, it's also what you erase, it's what you foreground. And the process of saying something is simple, and the process of saying something is pure, by implication you're saying something else is not simple, it therefore leads to bad desires and lustful thoughts, and also it's dirty, it's polluted. So the implication is very clear, and people are just looking at her words and saying it's her personal choice, but it's a personal choice that comes from a caste privilege, and the caste privilege has real life consequences.
Of course.
So she I would respect her more if she said, I have these preferences, I am very fussy, but I don't have a problem. If she just made that statement, I would respect her more. She's just feeding into the existing caste prejudices.
Absolutely. Tehseen?
Look, let me again put this out there. Muslims don't eat pork because they find a pig to be impure. That's not privilege. That's how you are tuned. That's how you're wired. That's how it is. They won't share cutlery plates with somebody. It's got nothing to do with privilege. If she is, you can't speak on hypotheticals on a national platform. If she's written a book where somebody's eating curd rice, I don't read any of her books. But if she has written something like that, somebody can write a book where somebody's enjoying a chicken shawarma or a chicken burger. That's not the issue. And I agree that India needs science, India needs protein, India needs our kids to get protein. None of that is the matter of argument. What is it? This was a food show. It wasn't some scientific show. It was a food show. What was the show about? Covering her food choices. So, in fact, I'm going to be a part of one of these food shows next week, and it's about food choices. Similarly, on such shows, the same host, there are many people who eat non-vegetarian food. And when I'm on the show, I'm going to be speaking about how I love my proteins. So, it is a choice. How can you get on a food show and bring it and equate it to Brahminism or choices and say this is how it is? Let's assume. Leave Sudha Murthy out. Let's assume on the
that's
same
because
show. No, just don't interrupt me, please.
Go
just
on,
one second.
go
Very
on.
important point I'm making. Let's assume for a second, on this same very important food show, you had a Muslim celebrity who says, "Look, I like all my meats except pork. We just don't eat pork because it comes from the belief that the pig is not clean." Would we have this debate on that Muslim celebrity?
No, but that is a different
I'm asking you
thing.
this.
No,
How is it different?
No, Tehseen,
Okay,
it's not the same thing. The word is, what if that Muslim gent or woman said, I can't shout, Tehseen, but what if that Muslim gent, that, I'm so scared sometimes when I go to eat at this sandwich joint, I'm so scared, they will serve me a pork sandwich. Scared is
Okay,
the
can I
word.
answer that?
Scared, and if it is Tehseen Poonawala, I'll say you are privileged, aren't you? You can go to some other restaurant.
Yeah.
But if I am not, maybe the other person is not that I am not. So the point is also, Dilip,
Sudha, you're
I
wrong.
want to talk about
No,
this, is
just give me
that
a second.
a lot
Just
of
give me a second.
importance is given,
Just give me a
a
second.
lot of this thing is added to, you know, pure vegetarian, you are veg, like, you know, Dr. Karpagam was saying, look, why are we debating this?
Sudha, don't
After all,
interrupt me.
she
Just one
said
second. My flow
something which
breaks.
can be taken as innocent. Tehseen, I'll just come back to you.
Just
You
give me a
can be
second. My
taken as
entire flow
innocent.
broke. My viewers won't get what I'm saying. See, you know, when you break my flow, my viewers don't get it. My viewers like my pattern to be straight. So that's a way I like to do. So let me just explain the pattern again. Then you interrupt me. Just allow me to finish, please. Let's assume there's a Muslim celebrity. He goes and says, look, and the same show, and he says, I don't like pork because the pig is unclean. Now you say, okay, but that's about purity. The same Muslim celebrity now goes to the same talk show and says, look, is the meat out here halal? Because halal meat is considered pure for Muslims. Now, would you say again that's privileged? No. That's how it is. You wouldn't have a talk show. You can look at me and believe me, I am pro-protein. Believe me, I am I am for children getting proteins. And I think Sudha Murthy exaggerates. But you wouldn't have a show on that Muslim celebrity. That's what I'm saying. There's a
No, it's
bias
not
that's
about
kicked in.
protein versus carbs versus anything. I think I don't look at it as like that at all, because I think, you know, but the thing is, Dilip, I'm going to ask you this, that the entire halo which is created around this, you know, about being pure, known garlic, oh, I mean, that's your choice. I mean, no one need to go around, you know, and make this, because let me tell you, when the entire, you know, when it was said that khichdi versus biryani debate we've had in this country, and you know, there is a, because renunciates, if you're a sannyasi, they do this. I mean, they eschew all kinds of you know, food like tamasic food, etc., etc. So I think it also comes from a place of superiority. I mean, you and I, Dilip, we've seen this in Delhi, where someone will introduce, and if you say, come, let's sit down, he says, मैं तो vegetarian, मैं तो non-veg नहीं खाता, I don't smoke, I don't drink, you know, I don't even have garlic, I mean, I didn't ask you. But then they put it out there as if it's a badge to wear. So the problem is coming from a superior place, Dilip.
My shall I say, example is that it is the same fear that you should then have if you're a teetotaler, that I am very scared that they're going to serve me in a glass where somebody has drunk whiskey. See, that is the problem. See, it is, I think Tehseen is conflating it with religious belief, which is the kosher and the pork part. If Sudha Murthy were to say that I am a Jain and I am not allowed to eat either garlic or onions, I have no issue with that. That's okay. You can say that I'm not allowed to because of my religion. But to say I'm fearful of cutlery is what I said is exaggerating the point, othering the massive majority. And the real anxiety I have is that I don't believe that this is entirely innocent. That is where I'm coming from. It may have been a mistake. It may have been appropriate to say on a food show, as Tehseen is saying, but I think that the line that gets extended from there, when the person is of the kind of influence that Mrs. Sudha Murthy is, there is a real cause for us to blow a whistle. To blow a whistle only to say, please don't use the word scared, because that could create problems down the line and the kinds of things that have been pointed out on the show.
All right, and I've completely run out of time. My thanks are due to Dilip Cherian, Dr. Karpagam and Tehseen Poonawala. Thank you very much. Now let's move on to the other story from the south. It's a season of yatras, and it's gained more traction after Rahul Gandhi led Bharat Jodo Yatra. Now K. Annamalai, the cop-turned BJP president of Tamil Nadu, has flagged off a 129-day-long march which is titled Yenman, Yen Makkal, which means my land, my people. Elaborate arrangements were made in the island town of Rameswaram, where Union Home Minister Amit Shah flagged off the yatra today. The yatra will cover 39 Lok Sabha constituencies and 249 assembly constituencies. It is clear that apart from Tamil Nadu, BJP, which plans to, of course, attack DMK and hail Modi's governance. It is also a push by Delhi to strengthen its southern pitch. Tamil and Tamil Nadu have been given enough focus and importance by the party, and you all know that it became very apparent, particularly after the placing of the Sengol in the new parliament. So there you have it, K. Annamalai all ready to go on a Padayatra in Tamil Nadu, focusing on the failure of the Dravida Munnetra Kazhagam and also to highlight what Narendra Modi has done for the country and for Tamil Nadu. That's all I have in this show, where we focus on news from the south of India. But you know what? For every news and analysis, this is your destination, News9 Live. Thank you for watching. Vanakkam.
GPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it.
It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. Streaming now.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have 3 garbage mountains waiting to welcome you, depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर। इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के।
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं, उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है। आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है।
डॉक्टर ने मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए।
Delhi's garbage mountains are now a fetid symbol of the national capital's trash problem. The question is, who is to be blamed? Watch Delhi's Garbage Mountains. Streaming on News9 Plus for the Genflix.
Our Supreme Court has evolved into a third organ of governance and not just an institution for resolving disputes. So this is the fundamental difference between the two systems which has come into being. Our court moving ahead as an institution of governance, the American court taking a step backwards and giving back more power to the electorate.
Talking of the US, which comes to my mind is the laws pertaining to guns. And that I feel is so regressive.
I wouldn't say that the Supreme Court of the United States is regressive. Conservative, yes.
Theodore Roosevelt said, "A great democracy has to be progressive, or it will soon cease to be great or a democracy." This is exactly what we've seen in recent judgments of the Supreme Court of India. At the same time, the Supreme Court of the United States has delivered judgments that seem to be more conservative. Those conducting such tests based on a patriarchal mindset will be punished, warned the Apex Court. Another recent Supreme Court verdict allowed unmarried and single women with pregnancies between 20 to 24 weeks to abort and legally access safe abortion care.
This MTP Act was made in the year 1971. Basically, it was allowed only for married women. Vulnerable categories were made under Rule 3B, where abortion rights were given to few categories of women up to 24 weeks, like minors, rape victims, physically disabled, mentally retarded, divorcee, widows. Now this judgment will help to all the women, irrespectively now married, unmarried, minor, to use their right up to 24 weeks.
The judgment was progressive in another regard.
The Supreme Court has extended and reached marital rape also in terms of MTP Act, where any married woman is carrying pregnancy that is done by her husband only, forcibly upon her, and she doesn't want to continue the pregnancy. In such case, she is also allowed to terminate her pregnancy up to 24 weeks.
Our courts are in sync with the progressive sensibilities of modern India. In contrast, the world is turning more regressive. The ruling sparked protests across the United States.
We have accepted that life includes dignity. Once you accept that the right to life is not a right to an existence, but it's a right to an existence with dignity, then so many things come in. The right to have a limited control over your body comes in through the same route. The choice of your own sexuality. A logical corollary of holding that life includes more than just existence. If you read the Dobbs' judgment, they go back to the old theory, saying the 14th, and that's a larger issue which is going to haunt American constitutional law. They have gone back and said the 14th Amendment, the due process clause, only protects enumerated rights, and you cannot create rights which are not enumerated.
Laws pertaining to guns. And that I feel is so regressive that it probably equalizes any of our regressive laws if we have any. Because how can you, as a Supreme Court, legalize gun trotting? In India, we have the Arms Act. In India, we have, to my mind, we need licenses. The licenses are given by DCPs. So the law is strict. The Delhi High Court struck down 377, but Supreme Court did not agree with it initially. Later in Navtej Singh Johar, you found not only LGBT groups, but other human rights groups that spoke up against against 377. Therefore, consensual sex with a partner of the same sex is no longer a penal offense. Earlier, it was a penal offense.
I also think it opened the space for young people to be able to discuss these issues, maybe at home, even for older people. Say that, yes, I am gay and it's fine, I'm not a criminal anymore. Acceptance within the family is so important. So I think it allowed for that discussion to start happening.
It gave a husband the exclusive right to prosecute his wife's lover. The law did not extend the same right to the wife.
Not only was it a law not in keeping with the times, the rationale of the law was noxious to any woman. Adultery is a matrimonial misdemeanor, but it can't be a criminal misdemeanor treating a woman as a being.
The apex court corrected a historic regressive practice.
We have dealt with cases where people sent triple talaq notice on email or on WhatsApp messages. And this voice was coming from the Muslim women themselves because they are the sufferers. And that is why you see it also, court's decision was also in favor of women. Court this, I think, triple talaq judgment is one of the historic judgments.
For treating your men and women as equal, in accordance with Article 14 and 15, a principle of law where both husband and wife can seek divorce on the same terms, same conditions, and cannot be a momentary angry outburst.
Now, what is the difference between low explosive and high explosive? Rapidly, in low explosives,
The 2021 ruling also empowered them with commanding roles at par with their male counterparts.
It is a progressive step, no doubt, but that progress should have been made 25 years ago. I don't think the quality of the armed forces has suffered now because of women getting permanent commission.
Indian judiciary has delivered progressive judgments in many other cases that have changed the course of our society.
Supreme Court in terms of giving right to parental inherited property to women. Our parliament is in fact much behind the, walking behind the Supreme Court judgments. And let me give you an example of Vishakha judgment. Because, Vishakha judgment recognized the sexual harassment at workplace. Because when that judgment was, pronounced, nobody was willing to recognize the harassment at workplace. Nirbhaya case shook the country, and not only the country, but the whole world actually. So I think after that, Nirbhaya case really changed the history of, sexual assault law judgments, and also that it has given a kind of guideline, or you can say a kind of direction to all rape cases.
There have been several progressive and, if I may use the expression, liberal judgments that have come from the Supreme Court. And interestingly, all of them are in, through public interest litigation. So I think it's a good sign that public interest litigation is being entertained.
We respect all the judgments being passed by the courts of India. We have a clear thinking in our mind that judiciary must be respected, judiciary must be independent, but at the same time, judiciary also will have to perform within the ambit of the constitutional provisions.
Experts, however, believe we still have a long way to go.
Certain provisions, would need to